Well, D&D and WotC are on fire, and the whole world decided it's time for a boss fight. So let me throw my 2 cents into things for some easy content and maybe some views. Everyone else is doing it, and I could use the attention. I'm an old D&D loyalist, one of the 3.5 kids who loved breaking the game with all the crunchy customization that type of system offered. I was one of the people who just refused outright to touch 4.0, maybe because I didn't want to buy the books and my group was 3.5 exclusive. And I did wait a while to get into 5.0 because change scary. As stands, I've got most of the D&D 5e rulebooks. Xanathar's, Mordekainen's, Eberron, Tasha's, Fizzbands. I've even got the first critical rulebook. I haven't had the chance to get the second, etc. I'm also one of those brass that would rather adapt D&D to something it shouldn't be able to do rather than just play a different system. And that's mainly because it's a lot easier to say, hey, we're playing D&D with some homebrew, rather than saying, hey, we're playing something completely different that you've never touched before and you have to buy the book and learn a whole new system to participate. It's just easier. All that being said, over the past few years, I've really been looking into other systems. Today, I'd like to share my journeys and give my opinion on some systems worth looking into for anyone who, like me and several others at the moment, just want to do basically anything except for 5e. Bear in mind, I am a huge science fantasy nerd and would very much prefer spaceships to swords and sorcery, and I will try not to speak at length of things I don't have actual experience with. I'll still talk about games I haven't played, but are on the list. I just won't go into depth with them because, well, I kind of can't. I don't have the experience to. Oh, before we get started, I should probably mention a bit of terminology that some of you may not be too familiar with. I mention something that I refer to as crunch quite a bit with regards to a system's complexity. What I mean by a system being crunchy is that there are a lot of numbers and rules involved to give a more accurate representation of actions, most often in combat. D&D is more or less middle of the road / kind of light when it comes to crunch, in my opinion, though I could have some bias due to it being my main game for the past 10 years and me kind of developing a borderline encyclopedic memory of a lot of the rules. Starting at the top, Pathfinder. Y'all know this is coming. Paizo has my heart from their response to all this. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just throw Paizo OGL into the search bar. You'll get a much better explanation than anything I could cook up. Pathfinder has a special place in my heart despite the fact that I've never actually played it, and that is because I started in 3.5. That deeper crunch to combat, the seemingly endless customization just from glancing at the feat list. Again, I haven't played in a Pathfinder game as of now, but that'll change within the year without a doubt. As stands, I can wholeheartedly recommend Pathfinder as a horizontal alternative, to anyone really looking to continue that high fantasy vibe with a system and lore that's equally, if not more, rich in quality. Next up is another Paizo title, that being Starfinder. Now, before you say, oh, but Dave, it's just Pathfinder in space. You're not right, but you're also not technically wrong either. Yes, Starfinder is a very similar system to Pathfinder and the old 3.5 rules, but it's got some nuance that makes it stand tall on its own. That aside, there's the elephant in the room of this being a Star Wars-esque space opera, wizards and starship kind of vibe. Like I said earlier, I'm a huge sucker for this kind of setting, and just in the core rulebook, there are so many points of lore for a GM to throw together campaigns with. Just about every little tidbit of lore on every individual planet in the Pact Worlds, which is the kind of central setting where this takes place, there's some kind of deep mystery or blatant problem that's been going on for a while, or some kind of shenanigans going on that could all reasonably be crammed together into a pretty gnarly campaign. The amount of world building they do out of the gate in the core rulebook, by the way, just one book, is honestly staggering. It makes my lore nerd brain very happy. On top of that, the classes are varied in the extreme and versatile. Besides, I've only played one class, but allow me to share my experience. We were doing a Star Wars themed one-shot to get used to the game. My bud was playing a mechanic with a walking tank of a drone, and I ran a Vanguard that was reflavored as a Sith. We fought off some bounty hunters, raided an Imperial cruiser during a rebel attack, and my mechanic buddy danced our crappy little shuttle like a fairy in the ensuing dogfight. If you want to run any kind of sci-fi or science fantasy setting, or you just love the base Starfinder setting like me, I can wholeheartedly recommend this game for those who are rules resilient enough to work with this crunchy of a system. If you do, the customization will be worth it. Now for something lighter. I'm going to combine these two because, similar to Pathfinder, I've done a lot of looking but haven't actually played either of these. Fate and Cypher are both setting agnostic and very much open, but also lighter on actual rules and numbers enough to make them significantly easier to pick up, both for players and GMs. In fact, in Cypher at least, the GM doesn't roll dice at all. It may sound like it gets boring, but both of these games are more narrative focused, and the difficulty system used by the GM in lieu of dice rolls lightens the stress load by orders of magnitude, which for me, being a forever DM, is very much welcome. I love rolling dice as much as the next guy, but if a system makes my job as a GM easier, I'm all for it. Fate I'm less familiar with, but it's been around for a long time with a very loyal fan base. Use only 6-sided die, and they're a bit different than your average dice, but again, this is a lighter system designed to more help with a narrative than put more crunch into mechanics. Still a lot of versatility, though. From what I've heard, Fate is a bit more finicky to learn due to the wording in the rulebook, but that is secondhand knowledge, and I haven't had the chance to read over it myself yet, so take that with a grain of salt. No matter your thoughts on these two games, they're well known as being versatile enough to run in pretty much any setting and easy to pick up. I plan to use both over the coming year and really testing that statement. Honestly, I can't wait to get into it. Rules light systems like this are fantastic for creativity. Less rules means cooler descriptions and more rule of cool moments. If you really want some ultra rules light systems, check out anything under the Lumen rule set. It's so light on rules, I'm afraid it might frickin' float away, to the point that sometimes I was looking for a stat or something that just didn't exist on NPCs, but this allowed for a lot more freedom for storytelling over mechanics or combat. Nova in particular has a really cool setting with the sun exploding and showering the planet with sparks that people build cities around, and players, called Sparks, are basically Destiny-style guardians that run around in superpowered mech suits doing stuff. There's a mecha game in the same system called Apocalypse Frame that's more or less Mech Warrior, and a Destiny-inspired version called simply Light. Lumen is built to allow a more video gamey experience where combat lets players feel like powerhouses and run lightning fast. The systems vary from featherlight rules to having just enough crunch to give some depth. Me, personally, I have a weird relationship with these. The system is so light you can build your game around it in a few hours if you really focus down. Picking them up as a GM, it only took me like 4 hours total, and I'm talking about from finding Nova itself, buying the book, reading through it, and then feeling comfortable enough to run a game. Roughly 4 hours. Making characters for Nova took 10 minutes, and I ended up building my own classes just to see how they perform. Spoiler, pretty well. But if, like me, you prefer more structure to your games and a lot of customization, these systems will be a struggle, if not completely unreasonable. I still keep them in my back pocket for a pop-up one-shot just to fiddle about and throw dice around, because honestly, players can pick this up in about 5 minutes. Last two are very crunchy games, be warned. I'm a bit of a power gamer and love to throw around combos that surprise my GMs and break the game a fair bit. So if you're anything like that, these two will be your jam. Also, be warned that both are sci-fi with different flavors. I did say I was a sci-fi nerd. Cyberpunk Red is my personal favorite gritty TTRPG. It's class variety with roles instead of classes, and skills, so many skills, let you really build what you want. My favorite character in recent memory was Boomer, a smooth-talking fixer weapons dealer who kept a rotary grenade launcher in a case he was never seen without, and had friendly ties with MaxTac, the city's super cops that don't care about stepping on corporal toes. And could brawl too. He got on MaxTac's radar when he headbutted a cyberpsycho in a bar. That might not have made much sense, but trust me, it was ridiculous in the highest degree. This is definitely a crunchier type of game, though. You have a lot of skills and stats, and so many equipment modifiers on top of any cyberware you install, fiddling with your numbers. Once you get rolling with it, things start to make a lot of sense, and happily there is no magic in the setting to further complicate things, but it's still a lot for anyone not used to this type of complexity. That said, there are a couple of nice tools and apps, I have one on my phone actually, that help a lot with character creation, as well as a decent virtual tabletop integration from what I've seen. I do use Foundry, and I have seen it used well on Roll20. If you're down for a more down and dirty feeling experience, this is a great place to start. And now the crowning achievement that I just absolutely adore, my current favorite game that I just can't seem to find a group for despite how awesome I feel it is, Lancer. This is a mecha-based RPG centered around Lancers, elite pilots who can actually make the mechs do the cool things. My cat just decided to say hello. The setting is distant future sci-fi, which allows for a lot of ridiculous tech I haven't seen anywhere else. There's a whole company in lore called Horus that makes reality-breaking mechs so ridiculous they might as well be magic. I'm talking a mech that breaks into drones, another that shoots reality-warping bolts of cracked space-time as its main gun, a hulking demon-looking thing that uses nanomachine-based fire or something crazy like that. This is a game built on the rule of cool going over the top at all times, and I love it. You can also mix and match your mechs, which is where the crunch comes in. There are a lot of mechs, especially with expansions, which there are a good few of, several of which are community made. You can easily take the main gun from one mech, throw it on the frame of another, then take the equipment package from another and slap on the AI from a fourth to franken-mech something that does a little of everything or hyper-optimizes one combat style. If you want more in-depth explanations about Lancer, check out 11 Dragon Kid here on YouTube. I'll link his channel below. Great person. I actually don't know their gender, sorry if I assumed. Great person, and they did a whole series where they did like combat scenarios to demonstrate how to fight and run the game, and those got really funny. As a last little bit, because I can't not mention this, there exists a site called CompCon for Lancer character building that is the perfect example of how to make a character builder, and another site called Retrograde Minis that uses Lancer as inspiration for their token builds. You can easily throw together a character on CompCon and then build your mech in Retro in the span of about an hour if you know what you're doing. Probably a lot less, actually. I'll link both sites below for your convenience. There's no way I can truly convey the deep complexity of Lancer and the beauty of it here, and yes, I know I'm biased, so let me know if y'all would like to hear more about it. In fact, let me know if you guys would like to hear more about any of these. I want to play more tabletop RPGs this year and hopefully bring them either to this channel or just make another one dedicated to the hobby. Oh, I'll link as many of the game sites below as I can so you guys don't have to fiddle with searching yourselves. Just give y'all a little convenience. And, of course, if you have any questions about individual systems or anything related, let me know in the comments below. Also, feel free to jump into my Discord, link below, to talk more in depth about anything tabletop. That said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope this helped you find either a new system or rediscover an old one that you haven't messed with for a while. You guys know the drill from here. If you did enjoy, drop me a like and a comment down below. If you'd like to see more, dropkick that subscribe button, roundhouse the bell next to it so YouTube Senpai remembers to tell the almighty algorithm chan that I exist whenever I upload. And if you would like to join me personally for some tabletop shenanigans or video game shenanigans or any kind of psychotic shenanigans, there's a Discord link down below. Hop in, ask for the Chaos Crew tag, and you'll be pinged when I am up to said shenanigans. That's pretty much it for today. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I will see y'all next round.